my good friend Vincent Genna. He is an incredible psychic, intuitive medium. And then he has this whole ET connection that kind of just knocked on his door. He opened that door and boom, he's really tuned into that world. So his talk is going to be there he is, Vincent Genna, Close Encounters of the Psychic Kind. So he's going to bridge that gap between aliens, the psyche, consciousness, and why they're here, maybe. So happy to have you, Vincent.
Oh my gosh, it's exciting to be here, especially this time where you're talking about this expanded consciousness. And Neil, I'm going to tell you what the next step is. That's what this whole lecture is about. The next step and the most important step. Well, it's great to be here. And yes, I now consider myself an interstellar liaison, shall we say, okay, because of that connection. They connected with me, an intergalactic council, spiritual council connected with me. So this is about what they have been telling me. But I do want to give a little preliminary before I get into that. Real quick, I'm sure you guys already know all of this. So the first thing that I want to talk about is the different scales of contact that we now know. And actually, J. Allen Hynek created this scale. And of course, the first one is Close Encounters of the First Kind. That's visual sightings. All right, we've had that. We've seen a lot of that, right? And the government has footage of all of that, as well as people do. And then the second one is a UAP. I've got to throw that in now, or a UFO event with a physical effect is alleged. So whether there is a spacecraft that has crashed in Roswell or anything like that, now you're getting more physicality to this encounter, right? And then, of course, we know Close Encounters of the Third Kind, right? Where we see animated. Where did we see that, right? This was one of my favorite movies, right? Where they first communicated in the movie, right? Okay, well, we've gone beyond that, that's for sure, where there's Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind, where it's an event in which a human is abducted. That was all going on at the same time as the first three were happening, right? I'm going to be talking about why they've been abducted. You know, us humans like to always put a negative spin on everything first before we put a positive spin on that. And you know why? Because we've heard more no's in our life from birth than we heard yeses. So we've been trained to pay attention to the negative and not the positive. But I'm going to talk about the positive, about those abductions. And without them, we would not even be here today. So we'll talk about that. Now there's Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, when that involves direct communication, but human initiated. Okay. Who's done that recently? Well, we've got, if you've heard of Christopher Bledsoe Sr., he's the most documented one of making those human connections in sightings, in them actually orbs and actual spacecraft coming to him. And Dr. Stephen Greer has Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind actual protocol, where you can sit there and you do a meditation and you go through a series of steps, and then you can actually call in these orbs. Well, we've got to talk about what those orbs are, okay? We're going to go beyond that, and we're going to add Close Encounters of the Sixth Kind, where it's actually caused the death of a human or an animal associated with it. I'm sorry, I have not known any deaths of a human. Animals, yes, but also of necessity. That happened in Skinwalker Ranch. If you're familiar with any of that, where they were dissected cattle, not mutilated cattle. There is a specific reason for that, and it was caused by our ET brothers and sisters. We'll talk about that. And then Close Encounters of the Seventh Kind, where there is a hybrid. I'm going to tell you right now, we've experienced Close Encounters of the Seventh Kind. But I'm here to talk about the most important Close Encounters, and that's Close Encounters of the Psychic Kind, which is actual communication, alien to human, human to alien. That's the next step, and it's the most vital step, because it then answers all the other steps. So this is what I would like to do. I know I went through this fast, but they have given me a lot of information about who they are, why they've come here, all right, their purpose, and the next steps of their existence around our universe, okay? Now, I know you've heard a tremendous amount of information regarding this. If you are here today, then that means that you have an interest, you've been seeking out. Maybe you have a curiosity because you've heard some things. My curiosity started, years ago with the first book, Communion, that was fabulous about alien abductions, right? And so since then, I've always had an interest in UFOs and aliens. But of course, my psychic ability and my mediumship ability took precedence until they started communicating with me. So the information that they've given me may rock your world. Good. It needs to be rocked. Look at the world today. If you think it's in the place that it should be, you're wrong, which is the major reason why we're seeing more of them come here today. So what I would like to do for the next amount of time that I have with you is, instead of talking in the third person and telling you what they've told me, I'm just going to speak as the person, the being that has spoken to me the most, one of the council leaders, and I'm not channeling him, and it is a male figure. I'm just going to be speaking as he has spoken to me, just to make it easier. You'll know when I'm back. Believe me, you'll know when I'm back. Okay? So I would just like to speak and tell you and share. First of all, we have been here since the beginning of your existence on this planet, at least the one that is documented per your Neanderthals and per the Bible. But you had an existence before that as well. But we helped to establish you and get you going. You have indications of that in Egypt. There has been many of those writings on the wall and hieroglyphics that show that we have come down. We taught you advanced geometry and mathematics so that you can create and develop your civilization. But the greater surprise is that you are not the same being that started as the Neanderthal. It would have taken you too long to evolve to the modern man or mankind that you are today, humankind, to be correct in your world. So we helped you out. There is scientific evidence that your DNA has been spliced. Yes, there is evidence of that and studies. You can read about it in many different authors' books and their journals. And that is about how we cut some of your DNA and spliced it with some of our own. So humans in modern humans that appeared on your planet 11,000 years ago, almost instantaneously, are all hybrids. We helped to create the human you are today. In fact, there are organizations and companies that if you have your DNA tested, they will tell you how much of you comes from modern man and how much of you comes from Neanderthal. The two DNA strands are separate. And we had to do that because you were progressing so slowly. Now, I know that is mind-blowing, and certainly they would not change any of your history books because that would rock all of the colleges, all of the learnings, all of the degrees you have all received down there on earth, especially religion. So, the beginning of Adam and Eve in your Bible is the story of that modern man and the beginning of the hybrid. Here is proof in your own Bible there was an existence of two species at that time. In your story of Cain and Abel, Cain killed his brother Abel, and God cast him out of the Garden of Eden. But as he casts him out, he says two things to Cain. First, I put the mark of Cain on you so others would know who you are. Second, and this is the part nobody has ever questioned, not even your religious teachers. God said to Cain, you shall not procreate with those of your kind. You can only procreate with those of the earth. Who was God referring to? Or why was that even written in your Bible, if not to distinguish modern human from Neanderthal human? You're hybrids. Now, other information that you believe in that needs to be simplified. First of all, you are going to have a very difficult time getting to a higher consciousness if you are paying so much attention to what the government knows and what the government is hiding. Spend more attention on your own individual consciousness. Our advancement came from our development of our spiritual side, not our physical or just mental side. We are body, mind, and spirit as well. Whereas down on earth, humans like to focus on the physical, which also includes power and money. Because of that focus, you separated from the most important part of who you are and your higher consciousness, your spiritual side. We focused on that. It was even proven by many who have experienced contact with us. Recently, it has been who you just have spoken about before, the interview with Jake Blair. He experienced a spiritual connection with us, with the one who was actually in that one UAP, or we will say a saucer or ship, however you can accept it. She was piloting it, and he experienced both sadness and love and positivity. She was sad because she crashed on your planet, and she knew what the outcome was going to be. But when you connect with us, you're connecting directly to who your soul really is and who we really are, divine beings and creations. You've constantly separated your spirituality between the physical side of you and then a religious side of you. And the religious side of you doesn't get any attention unless you are involved in that. But it is not religion that makes you spiritual. It is spirituality that has caused religions. However, the proper definition of your spirituality is your higher consciousness and who you are. And that's what you're beginning to recognize and step into, but it is still taking you a long time because you're complicating it too much. Now, who is out there in your universe? No one else. No other living existence is in your particular universe. Each universe comprises one species, And you are the species of the universe that you can see. To the extent and range that you can see out into the universe, every star, every planet, every gas and neutron experience you have in that realm is only in your universe. Our universes are in different dimensions. Now, the interesting part is that your government does have spacecraft, not many, and only pieces of it. And they've been trying to reverse engineer to find out our propulsion ability. It doesn't matter if they discover it or not. And so that you all know, they are right now in the midst of attempting to create an intergalactic spacecraft. You see, many of your government scientists already know that you are using up the resources of your natural Earth. So they are figuring that there will be a way or another planet that they can go to that can harbor humans. Well, you might get as far as another distant planet from your own solar system. However, you will never escape your own universe unless you develop the principles of spiritual understanding, because it requires dematerialization. And dematerialization only happens in a higher consciousness when you realize you are made of more space than you are made of matter. Now we're talking quantum physics. And that is what you should be spending most of your time on understanding. Yes, your world is a physical illusion. Your brain puts together the pieces purposely so that you can live in this physical world and function in it. You would never be able to function if all you saw was space. But that's all there truly is. And you are filling in the space with your own images of what you can accept. It is exactly what your own brain does with your vision. You have a blank spot in the middle of your vision. It's where your eye nerves connect to the back of your brain. The macular is what you call it. Macular degeneration is when that spot gets too big and you begin to notice it. However, you at a normal vision do not walk around seeing that blank spot. Why? Because your brain fills in the space. Now, it doesn't fill it in with something it's already seen. Otherwise, you would be seeing overlap. It fills it in with what it knows should be there. This is the exact principle that your brain is doing for the space that's around you now. But if you keep focusing only on the biological, you will never get past that. In your own body, there are doctors who have discovered that some of your own electrons and atoms will dematerialize in one place in your body and rematerialize in another. So you've got two atoms sharing the same electron in different locations of your own body. Once you learn this principle, then you will also learn how to become a part of any matter. You question how we can come through mountains and out of water, out of thin air, as if they were non-existent. It's because we know the principles of dematerialization. We also know the principles of polarization and use your Earth gravity to propel our ships. Two types of ships will come to your planet and have been. There will be those unmanned that are actual just monitors, your own drone system, but much more advanced. And no, very few have been to the state of New Jersey. So just want to clear that up for you. Now, who and what are Palladians? If we came down to you as we truly appear, even 2,000 or 10,000 years ago, you would never have been able to accept us for who we were and are. So we appeared as we looked prior to our full evolution. Similar process that you're going through now. So we came to you looking like humans. They are not from your planet Pleiades or star system at all. Like I said, there is no other living creature existing beyond your Earth plane. We come to you as we can, as you are capable of experiencing us. Why do we abduct you? Well, you create biological diseases, viruses, incredible elements that will destroy and can destroy your body and do it on a daily basis. So much so, it is faster than your own body's ability to counter those creations. You would be non-existent today if we did not keep manipulating your genes, which is why we will abduct some people. But we attempt as best as possible to cause no harm. You actually cause more harm on your planet with your own scientific research and what you would give and do to humans just to try to create a drug or some new cure. We do it as gently as possible and in an attempt to wipe the memory so that way you don't remember or recall why and what the experience was. But just as your own drugs that attempt to wipe the memory of your surgeries, they don't always work. It depends on a person's consciousness and strength of consciousness. Some people are more determined to be in touch and in connection with all the levels of their consciousness. They do that from an unconscious level. And then there are those who are oblivious, but then they are also oblivious to conscious things that go on around them. So this is the reason why some remember and many don't. Many more don't remember. Now, this is happening worldwide and not just in the United States. It's been going on for many years that we have been visiting all different parts of the world. In Peru, they accept us as if we are family. And just so that you know, we are. We, all souls, were created at the same exact time. We too have a soul or are a soul when we live and leave our physical existence. So the visitations you are having are either in physical form, when you see your spacecraft, when you see appearances of creatures, those are the physical forms of who we are. Then there are the spiritual ones, as the ones that make contact with some of your humans down there. Okay? Vincent has been talking with a spiritual council of extraterrestrials, not a physical one. But you also, when you're in spirit, can visit other planets and speak with other of your brothers and sisters. Yes, we are all brothers and sisters. Just as in spirit, we come to you as guides as well. We've been doing that since all our existence. We, again, just paid more attention to our spiritual nature than our physical nature and our mental nature, and developed that much faster and at a higher rate. than you did. We can say that the human species is the least evolved of all the species. I don't think that's such a surprise to many of you. There are those who would like to believe they are more advanced than other living beings, which is the reason why they need to make us look less humane and more animalistic, or these days as insects. You will never get a full understanding of who we are as you keep creating those kind of movies, because they instill fear in us. Because right away, everybody is thinking there is that group of you who believe that we are going to come and harm you in some way. But your own intellects in the past have acknowledged that in order for us to escape our universe, we would have to have command of spiritual principles. Albert Einstein said that himself and believed in other existences. And he is and was correct. You have to have command of spiritual principles. We are then all benevolent and never malevolent. Now, why there were mutilations that you call in so-called areas, whether they be in Skinwalker Ranch or other parts of the world. There are organisms that you still eat. We don't eat the same way as you do. We drink our food, which is the reason why you see many of us and our species with smaller mouths. We've learned to take in only nutrition and still enjoy flavors. But on Earth, you pay very much attention to what you're eating and how much you eat of it. Well, many of the foods that you are eating today are causing you great harm because of all of the products that are being put into those foods, particularly animals. And of all the animals, which is the meat that you've been told is the worst? Beef. Well, it would be more difficult for us to take an entire cow into one of our ships and then dissect it to find out what is wrong with it. So we do it on your planet. That is all we chose to do, is to dissect it, to again research it, inspect it, and find out what molecules in it, what cells within the beef are holding the harmful poisons that you are taking into your body, and what can we do to help generate a stronger gene so that you are not creating the cancers that you are creating. You apparently like a long life to live. We are only helping you with your own desires. If it wasn't for our species, you would not have had the same discoveries. We also helped to implant inspirations in many of your scientists' minds. Angels guide, what you call angels, they're just older brothers and sisters who remained behind when everyone decided to incarnate on a planet or in a universe. So you've received many inspirations from many different directions. However you come by them, that is a wonderful aspect of the human mind, is that you will heed some of your inspirations. If you listen to them more, you would be able to make more contact with us. Now, in that abduction, we have also learned that there are biological differences in the way you procreate and create still your off-seedlings, your children. We have a more advanced way of doing that, yet still appreciate the intimate part of connection. So the other type of being that we are is we have learned to transform ourselves into light beings, which is what all of you can also do. Your Mayans knew how to do that because we taught them, which is the reason why you will never discover any remains of the Mayan culture, because they transfigured into light beings and just raised themselves into a new dimension. In fact, your figure Jesus came to Egypt to learn how to transfigure, which is what he did on the day he rose from the dead. He didn't rise from the dead. He transfigured himself into a light form, which is why when Mary saw him outside of his tomb, that she couldn't touch him. I have yet ascended to my Father's house, is what he said. He meant that he did not take, he was in light form and had not ascended into a higher dimension yet, into that realm where we will all go. Yes, there are different dimensions to experience. The earthly ones harbor your lost souls, or what your psychics and mediums may call as ghosts, or your ghost hunters. That is also your purgatory or limbo. Those are the dimensions closest to the earth. And then there are the dimensions beyond the earth, many of which we reside. I will tell you this again to simplify your understanding. There are not thousands of us in existence. There are only 12 universes, which is why the number 12 is so powerful in your own system. Biblically, the number 12 comes up many times. The 12 disciples, the 12 tribes of Jacob, and so forth, right? The 12 days of Christmas. There's 12, and numerology, as well as sacred geometry, is a part of your world as it's been a part of creation. And understanding and just accepting and putting all of that together would be so much easier than studying each subject individually. You spend so much time trying to understand one subject that you're missing the entire picture. What you're doing is you're holding one piece of the puzzle in your hand and you refuse to put it down until you find a place for it on the entire board, without realizing that you may have to put in the other pieces first before you find the space for the one you're holding in your hand. And those other pieces of the puzzle are more about who you are as a spiritual and conscious being, a higher conscious being. Edgar Cayce, in your works, has written about the oversoul. Your oversoul is the soul that the higher force, the deity, the God force that you call God or Yahweh or Elohim has created. And then you yourself, right here on this planet, is only an essence of that, a projection, only a piece of that higher soul. What you are attempting to do and need to do is not to worry about what science you're going to connect to, but to connect to the rest of who you are, your higher consciousness, learning how to open your channel. And you can communicate with us just the same as a medium can communicate with a deceased loved one. Life continues and is everywhere, and you can communicate with all of it. There are those of you there who can communicate with the animals of your earth, with even the plant life of your earth. Well, that is the simplest form of communication. you can go beyond your planet in communication and communicate with us, those that are in the spirit realm, those of us that exist in all dimensions. That communication can be strong and a part of your daily life and receive guidance every step of the way. You are now seeing a lot of what people are calling those orbs. Well, those are us as light beings. And so we can transfigure out of that light form and that orb form into what our physicality actually looks like and appears to be. Some of your people on your planet have experienced that. This is me talking again, Vincent. Yes, that's exactly a phenomenon that's been going on today, and more so is people seeing those orbs. In fact, that's what Dr. Stephen Greer is calling in, and Christopher Bledsoe is also calling in, are the light orbs. So right now, those that are doing the CE5 protocol and those that are seeing those orbs are just seeing the light configuration of them. They are not transfiguring for them into their actual ET appearance. And that's mostly because they don't want to startle. They truly don't want to scare us, which is one of the reasons why they came at night, and one of the reasons why they sneak here, shall we say. I will give now what I've been told about why they appeared more in the earlier times of our existence. And then there was a period where we weren't seeing any UFOs at all. And now all of a sudden they're coming back into existence the way we're seeing them, the way the government has picked them up, right? Since actually before the 1940s and 50s, they actually came in earlier than that again. But here was the thing that the council had told me. If you think about this, okay, think about it as if you are a big brother and you have either a little brother or a little sister and you're going to school together, right? Except you're in high school and maybe he or she is in middle school or elementary school, and she's doing or he's doing math homework, and you're in the kitchen with them and you're doing the homework with them, and you go, "Hey, Susie, the answer to number 5 is 10. And mom happens to be in the kitchen with you and turns around and says, "Hey, Alan, hey, Neil, listen, you know, your little brother or sister has to learn this on her own, right? So don't, I know you really want to help, but give her a chance to learn it by herself. She'll know, she may make a mistake, but that's how she learns, okay? So don't help them anymore, okay?" Now, mom leaves the kitchen. Okay, mom, whatever. You don't want to get in trouble, right? So she leaves the kitchen and you're looking around. Okay. Hey, Susie, the answer to 20 is 1, right? So now you're sneaking in the help, right? Because you still want to help. Well, that's what our alien brothers and sisters are trying to do, is they were sneaking in because that's why the council was formed. The council was created to help guide all of the souls that are actually going from place to place and incarnating and reincarnating and wanting to travel and wanting to visit. So instead of everybody getting all confused with all of these dimensions, there is a guidance group of beings. Hey, look, Star Trek had it right. You know, remember the Galactic Council that they had back then? Oh, and they were all looking all different types of creatures. We had to make them look all different ways even then, right? All the way back then. But they were way ahead of their times, you know, in writing all of that. But what happens is that we were being left to grow on our own. But because we have been so slow in that, because we have been dying left and right all over the place from horrible diseases and disorders. I was a hospice social worker. I worked with over 500 patients while I was on hospice, and I helped them through the dying process and their loved ones and caregivers that were taking care of them. And I can't even begin to tell you some of the diseases that my patients were dying of, unheard of things, right? That began with cancer from under the pinky fingernail that metastasized throughout this woman's body. And it goes on from there. So if I was more advanced, I would want to do everything I could, including going and doing a little probing, right? Hey, we have worst probing here. Guys, when did you get your last colonoscopy? Okay. And I think that they've done a better job in trying to abduct and help us and do probing at the least and with the least amount of harm that they could. All right. Yes. Were there some things that sacrificed? Yes. Were there some women that were pregnant and that they took? But those were hybrid babies to start with. And certainly you wouldn't want a Rosemary's Baby situation where a woman gave birth to a half alien, half human infant, right? So that infant was taken. I know, but don't we here also cause some disturbances in order to get great gains? We don't kill a lot of people, and then again, maybe we do. But we are at a point that we need to understand this psychicness. Now, I love how science has to change the word from psychic to psionic. I'm a psionic then, and I am making connection. And Jake made a connection, and it was a beautiful connection. That's what it feels like. I experience that all the time when I'm not only just making connections with my ET brothers and sisters that are wanting to talk with me. That's the exact same feeling that I get when I'm connecting with a human soul. I get that love. I get that feeling. And we have to open up our consciousness to that feeling. And as we do that, we're going to advance more. But we have to stop focusing so much on so many of these other things. It's an easy thing to understand. We are the high consciousness. We are what everything else is out there. It's just hard to see that. We are consciousness. We are everything. Remember, when it was written for a reason, whether you're religious or not, that we were created by this God force, whatever again you want to call it, right? This higher deity. And I'm still repeating things that were also said to me. We were created by this force, and it was said we were created in its image. So we know that, number one. Number two, we also know that that God, universal power, that omnipotent, divine, whatever, again, you want to call it, is part of everything. So that's number two. So therefore, with deductive reasoning, if it's part of everything, we are part of everything. I saw the most incredible quantum physicist at an event personally with doctors. She was incredible. And she was talking about quantum physics, right? And the reality of holographs. Okay, so if you take a holograph, shall we say, of an apple, and you see it, you make a holograph of it, and you slice that apple into pieces, and you take a piece of that holograph apple out, and you put it elsewhere, that one piece turns into the entire apple. That's who we are. We are the entire universe. Now, we do keep our individuality. They wanted me to know that, and I totally understand that from my work as a medium and my spiritual downloading that I've received. And we will have our own personalities because we get to enjoy being that piece of the universe. But that also means that the brother and sister sitting next to you, the one that you may want to judge and criticize, the one that you may want to think is invaluable, is also you. Every time you judge, harm, hurt, hate, criticize another being, you're criticizing a part of you. That's a very hard concept, but it's one of the highest spiritual concepts. When we gain that concept, we'll be able to walk through mountains too. Jesus tried to show us what we were capable of. Walking on water, that's nothing. I mean, we think that those things are so miraculous that we created a special religion around it, that only a sect of people believe that, and everybody else thinks it's nonsense. Well, as long as you think anything is nonsense, anything at all, then you're limited and you'll never make that higher connection, because nothing is nonsense. Anything we imagine with our limited minds on this earth, and this is one of the major things that they told me, is capable of being created and has already been created. We are not capable of imagining anything new. Everything we think of, everything we imagine already has existed and is real. So when we broaden our belief system, you will broaden your consciousness, because it's all about belief. And it doesn't matter how many seminars, how many workshops, and how much information you gather. We have a lot of those people. We have a lot of bookstores walking around, and they have got all this information because for the past several years, they've been going to New Age, New Thought, paranormal, scientific, UFO, ufology, MUFON, all of that material that they're gathering in here, and then go home and live the exact same existence before they went. Now, the knowledge does not gain you higher consciousness. The practice does. That's the most important thing that I have gained from my extraterrestrial friends and brothers and sisters, is that the practice of it. We have to heal ourselves. We have to clean the clutter out of that closet to gain a higher consciousness. And then you can accept what is appearing before us. And they are coming down more than ever before, because we are in the process of self-destruction. You are seeing another Sodom and Gomorrah going on right here. I quote a lot from the Bible, but not because I'm religious, but there were reasons why these stories were written. That was not a story about God destroying an evil town and countryside. It was about the humans there using their God force, or the force that George Lucas calls the Force, which, by the way, he was very metaphysical and spiritual. That story, Star Wars saga, is about us and our connection to that God force. They were using it to self-destroy. And the angel came down to talk to Lot to find the critical mass. That's the exact same thing that's happening on the planet today. And not only are our angels, our brothers and sisters, and actually Chris Bledsoe calls those extraterrestrials angels. They did create us. They are trying to help us. They're trying to give us a critical mass, because the critical mass of positiveness will overtake all the negative that's happening on the planet. You're going to see more and more of them. And don't be surprised that one day they land in your backyard. Don't be afraid. Welcome them in. And don't worry about having to put out a big spread. I'm Italian and my wife's Jewish. Normally when we have company, oh my God, we have so much food left over, it's crazy. When they come, all I have to do is make some smoothies. That's all I have to do. It'll be the greatest thing. Telepathic connection and communication, psychic awareness, open it up, raise your consciousness, do it today, and you'll have an ET brother and sister at your next event.
So you think all these ETs are here for a positive thing? There's no negative aspect?
No such a thing. We want to create that. You know, people walk around negatively to start with, Alan, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones that will always believe there's a gray cloud hovering over them. If there's a hole in the ground, they would find it. That they look always for the evil in a person rather than the good in a person. Well, if they do that in the physical existence, they're going to do the same thing with anything else. Remember, they used to call the angels. As a matter of fact, they did. They even turned an angel into a devil. There is no such thing as Lucifer. That was a story created by the church in order to gain control during the Middle Ages when feudalism was a power. So if we did that with angels, what do you think we're going to do with our ET brothers and sisters that are actually visiting us?
So they're all here to help, you're saying, and it's just a matter of us opening up to them so we can meet them on an even playing field.
Absolutely. And Alan, don't we need to open ourselves up to each other?
Well,
right?
Yes.
And when we do that and learn how to do that and learn how to accept, it's going to take a long time for the majority of people on this planet to even open up to their own higher consciousness, no less some other higher consciousness that exists out there. But those of us who do care, this is the way you do it. You do it through your own personal journey.
Great.